Hello students, and welcome to the CompTIA A+ 1202 exam course brought to you by Third Level Technology. I am your instructor, Jim Herbie. In this episode, we're going to begin our discussion of Module 1 in the 1202 exam objectives, discussing operating systems. This episode, we will begin by discussing Section 1.1. Our topic is operating system types. Let's begin. First operating system type is Microsoft Windows. Microsoft Windows is an operating system. It is the most widely used OS in our desktop and laptop computers. Microsoft Windows is known for having a very robust graphical user interface. And the Microsoft Windows GUI is very popular because it allows us to support a wide range of applications. Several different ways that you can interact with the programs, files, and applications that are stored on the OS. Windows has a Start menu. This is accessible from the word Start in the bottom left corner of your OS display. Windows also has a taskbar. A taskbar is going to be a long rectangular row that goes along the bottom of our display screen. Within Windows, we can configure how we want our taskbar to be viewable on the display. We can move it to the top, we can move it to the bottom, require the user to hover the mouse over it. There's different settings that we can enable. The most recent versions of Windows is Windows 11. But in this course, we've been discussing Windows 10 and 11 because many of your basic functionalities and the names of your different utilities are the same across both OS. Our next operating system type is Linux. Linux is what we call an open source operating system. All of the files that are needed to run the kernel in the Linux operating system are available to the public. With Linux, we use the term distribution to refer to all of the different versions of Linux. Linux OS is known for being very secure. And the reason for that is the code that is in your operating system is open source. That means it is available to the general public from your code repositories. It's very difficult to come up with novel ways to attack the standard operating system architecture because all of your code is already out there. If there are any bugs within the code for a specific application, Linux developers share that widely with the public sphere. That's why Linux environments are so popular amongst your more advanced IT because of that feature. We call all of the core files in each Linux distribution the kernel. In some of your other operating systems like Windows or Mac OS, we call this the core. The next operating system type is Mac OS, and this is Apple's desktop and laptop operating system. Mac OS is the operating system you will find in your Apple desktop devices as well as their MacBook laptop devices. Mac OS has many applications that are what we call proprietary. Proprietary means they have been developed by Apple to run only on Apple devices. An example is Mac OS's web browser, Safari. You cannot find Safari on any Linux or Windows device. It is native to Apple. Mac OS has the ability to integrate with other Apple devices. Any of your charging cables, synchronize your user accounts can be done through Mac OS as well as the mobile operating systems. Within Mac OS, the file system that we use for storage is also proprietary. It's called the Apple File System. You might see this abbreviated as APFS. And the fourth workstation operating system is Google Chrome OS. Chrome OS is the operating system that was developed by Google for their Chromebook laptops. Operating system that works in the cloud. All of your web applications and all of your storage will be in Google's cloud environment. We call that Google Drive. One advantage of the Chrome OS is its automatic updates. Because it is a cloud-based OS, its updates will come an active internet signal. Chrome OS is also compatible with all of your Android apps as well as your Linux applications. The next three operating system types are those that we find on our mobile devices. The first two are created by Apple. We have Apple iOS and Apple iPad OS. The Apple iPad OS is the OS version that was created specifically for the iPad device. This is Apple's tablet device. We have what's called pencil support. This is where we can use stylus pens, our touch input, and other ways to provide tactile input directly on the device. We can use iPad OS for split view, slide over, and gestures. Apple's other mobile OS is the iOS. Apple iOS is the operating system used in Apple's iPhone. Apple iOS is known for being very secure. Now you can access and download many applications, but they also have to be approved by Apple to be available in the App Store. Within Apple iOS, we also can enable more recent mobile payment options. If you have Apple Pay, you can enable this in your iOS to allow your iPhone contactless mobile payments. The competing mobile operating system is Android. In mobile devices, Android is the most popular. And it is an open source operating system created by Google for mobile devices. Android is the OS that is used on many of smartphone vendors, and it comes built in on the device. Android uses the Google Play Store for all of its application downloads and updates. Android is very customizable. Because it is open source, all of the apps that are installed on your standard versions of Android have already been tested. So a lot of your security risks with your standard applications tested and removed before they have been deployed on Android. So Android has an advantage to its open source nature because a lot of the basic apps, you know that they're going to be free of malware and they're going to be hacker proof. Now we're going to discuss some of the file systems that we see in these different operating systems. Our first file system is NTFS, the New Technology File System. NTFS is the default file system in Windows. It's very popular because it supports large file sizes for storage. It also allows for encryption. Any type of enterprise environment, we can use NTFS with BitLocker, which is the encryption tool within Microsoft Windows. NTFS also allows us to do file permissions. File permissions is where we can grant the different access levels for all of our different user accounts. Journaling is where we can have a record of all of the different file versions in our storage. So if we ever have any type of corrupted file, we can roll back to a file that we knew was in a good working configuration. Another file system is FAT32. That stands for File Allocation Table 32. FAT32 is the file system that we used in the 32-bit versions of Windows, Mac OS, and Linux operating systems. FAT32 was a file system that had a maximum file size of 4 gigabytes, used very often with your USB drives, optical discs, and memory cards. FAT32 was a file system that was phased out because it was very insecure. We did not have the ability to have file permissions or journaling. And because we wanted to have these types of features, that is what upgraded us to new file systems. Our next file system is a pair of file systems, different versions. They are ext3 and ext4. This stands for Third Extended File System and Fourth Extended File System. And these are both file systems used in Linux distributions. ext4, file system we use for large file sizes and those that we want to have available over a shared network. Both of these file systems do support journaling. So we can go back to previously shared file configurations if we ever have any type of corruption. And lastly, you want to know exFAT. This stands for Extended File Allocation Table. And this was the file system that was a replacement for FAT32. and it was designed for flash drives and external storage. With exFAT, we can take previously used file structure that we used in the older FAT32 versions, and we could use them for external storage and flash drives in our modern 64-bit operating systems. So we can use exFAT for all of our file sizes that exceed that 4 gigabyte limit we had in FAT32. And lastly, you want to understand APFS, the Apple file system. The Apple file system is a traditional file system, but it is proprietary. It is used on all of your Apple devices, both desktop, laptop, and iPad. Apple file system uses strictly SSD storage, solid state drive. You will not see any hard disk drives that will use the Apple file system. Apple file system is very secure because it has things like encryptions, directory sizing, snapshot images of our file backups, all built into the file system itself. That will conclude our discussion of Section 1.1 Operating System Types. In our next episode, we will move on to Section 1.2 and discuss operating system installations and upgrades. We thank you very much for following along in the episodes in the course and wish you best of luck in your studies. Enjoy the rest of your day.